The wheels came nice and safely packaged, no problems there. Once you open this tag, you would not put other wheel in your bike. Well, the English is getting better. So here's the accessories that came with the wheels. Here we've got 2 rotor lock rings, 2 rim tapes, 2 valve extenders and a tool to remove the valve. If you want to go tubeless, in this bag you get special rim tapes, 2 tubeless valves for the deep rims, a valve tool and a sealant goo. And lastly you get a few spare spokes for the front and the rear wheels. These Aviiav wheels here I've had for a while now and done about 2,000 kilometres on them. I've just taken them off the bike to show you, hence the Tyre tube cassette and the rotor is still on them. Now these are 50mm section and they're called the Aviiav model. Now that's their base model. Aviiav only make 2 models, the base model and the top of the range, and this is their top of the range wheels. They're called Aerox. So with the Aerox model, this in particular one has a 60mm section, although it looks the same because the Tyre tube's on that one. But believe me, that's a 60 and that's a 50. So the Aerox, this is their top of the range model, has a better hub, better spokes and a better rim construction. So let's have a closer look at these Aviiav Aerox wheels. First of all, the rims. The rim finish on these Aerox model is the same on the base model. It's a matte satin finish. And then the logos on there are, these ones are glossy black. You can get them in different colours of course. And they're stickers, they're stuck on, but they're stuck on really, really well. And I haven't had any peeling of these ones, over 2,000 kilometres, not even an edge lifting or a corner lifting. So they're all very well. So if these ones are the same as that, then that'll be fine. The shape of the rim, certainly not flat, not like they used to be years ago. It's quite roundish. So whether it's aerodynamic or not, the shape plays a big part. You could probably have a more aerodynamic rim with a lower profile if you get the shape right. Nevertheless, this shape might be just right for the profile it has. I don't know, I'm not an aerodynamic specialist, but anyway, at least you know it's not like the old rims where they used to be quite flat. The outer layer of the rim has a hole drilled for each spoke, which is good. If you need to replace a spoke or a nipple, then you can do so. You've got access directly there to each individual spoke. The rim size inside is 20mm, the outside is 26, and of course you've got 60 section. Now this Aerox model rim differs from the Aviiav model in that for the same strength it is lighter, and they achieve that, from what I can gather, is they put more reinforcing, more carbon around the spoke nipple area here where the tension of the spoke is, and less material elsewhere. So you've got the same strength but a lighter rim. Let's have a look inside the rims now. First up, the rear wheel. Stopping here, we'll have a look at spoke length, and yes, the spoke is all the way to the end of the nipple head, so that's good. We can also see here a washer under the nipple head that helps distribute the force and prevents damage to the rim when turning the nipples for truing. Moving on, we can see a long thin crease, fold or wrinkle, whichever you want to call it. Looking further around, quite clean, clean and clean. Quickly going back to the nipple area, and you can see the carbon weave in this area here. Well, that's because of the lack of resin. It's called resin starvation. Now I haven't seen this in any other rims I've looked at except for these Aviiav Aerox. Wanting a bit more of an explanation, looking at the Aviiav website, you can see with those rims, it says that the rims are formed with high pressure air 400 psi as opposed to normal HP forming or high pressure forming of 150 psi. It could be that such high pressure is pushing the resin away in certain areas. This resin starvation may just be on the final sheet of the carbon and mostly looks bad but poses no real structural disadvantage. However, I'm no carbon expert, so maybe someone out there can enlighten us. Looking through a second hole, but I looked at 4 all up, and it all seems to be pretty much the same. Generally good, with a few wrinkles and some resin starvation. With the front rim, I won't go on about it because it's generally pretty much the same as the rear one. So summing up this Aerox rim compared to the Aviiav model, it's wider, deeper and lighter. The maximum tyre pressure for these rims is 110 psi. And the smallest tyre you're probably going to run on this is a 25. You're probably going to run 28s or 30s. So you're going to have a lower pressure anyway. The wider the tyre, the lower the pressure. So 110 psi, that's plenty. You're probably only going to be running at the most 85 anyway. Spokes, they're Sappham CX Ray, straight pull with aluminium nipples. There are 12 spokes on each side of the rear wheel, so it's 24 spokes, and they're crossing twice. And the other interesting thing is these spokes are not touching at the cross here. Spokes for the front wheel, there's 10 each side, so 20 spokes, and where they cross, they're also not touching, as you can see there. Sappham CX Ray spokes are blade spokes or flat, so they need to be in line for maximum aerodynamics. So let's check the spoke twist. And you should be fairly familiar with this from previous videos I've done on the wheel testing. And we put this little tool on each spoke and see if it's straight. All very good for the rear wheel. I think they paid attention to the detail this time when they're building. Let's check the front wheel. So I'm just showing a few spokes. Their testing is actually at the rim and the hub. So it ends up being 48 tests for the rear wheel and 40 for the front. And none on the front wheel. Wow, that's amazing. That's the first time I've ever seen a wheel without a twisted spoke. Both front and rear, excellent job, Aviiav. Really well done. Pay attention, all you wheel builders out there, wherever you are, especially in China. Get your spoke twist nice and straight. This company's done it. So it's not hard to do, very easy. Well done, Aviiav. Rear wheel back in the stand, and we're going to do spoke tension now. So here's our tool, and we measure each spoke tension starting at the valve hole. You know the drill, you've seen it before in the previous video. We measure it, and we write it down, and we do each spoke, and then we draw a graph. So here's all our readings, and now let's put them into the graph plotter. All looks quite good, except for maybe two little spots there, a little bit flat, but nevertheless it definitely passes the 20% tolerance range. Tightening up the tolerance to about 15% and the wheel still passes. Very good. Front wheel, one spoke has a bit more tension than all the other spokes, but they all fall within the 20% range. In fact, they all fall within 10% of each other. That's very good. Some people like to homogenise spoke tension and say it should be this tension for that sort of wheel. Well, no, because the manufacturer takes into consideration many different variables like the strength of the rim, the number of spokes, the length of the spokes, the crossing of the spokes, and those sorts of things. It's quite complicated, but in the end it comes down to the wheel builder themselves. They're responsible for making the ideal tension for those particular arrangements. So whatever it is, it is. But the more important thing is that the tension is as consistent as possible. Now it's time to check how straight or true these wheels are. "12, 13, 14, 15, 15. The ball of that measuring arm is right on the edge of the rim so as to avoid the decals. 15. Front wheel, 0. 10, 12, 15, 16, 18, 18. Okay, so now we've got the vertical deflection and it's on the rear wheel. I'll just speed the video up a bit, otherwise it takes too long. So the needle swung to -2. +9 there, +9, +9. So -2 +9, so it's 0.11 millimeter out. Finally, the front wheel vertical deflection, and speeding the video up, and we've already got a -2 on the scale. We're going up to 12, 14, plus 2, so it's 0.16 millimetre out. So trueness of a wheel was really important, especially horizontally. Back in the old days when we had rim brakes, you didn't want it to touch your brake pads. You wanted to have a rim that's as straight as possible. Now we've got disc brakes, so the rim hasn't anything to do with your brake really. So you can get away with quite a bit of sideways wobble. Even up and down wobble you can get away with a fair bit because we're using bigger tyres now, so you feel less of the up and down bumps as well. Nevertheless, it's nice to have a dead straight rim as possible. Time to measure the dish. Zero. Okay. 0.1 of a millimetre on the rear wheel. Front wheel. Gosh, 0. It's perfectly dished, that one. So only the rear wheel, 0.1 millimetre. It doesn't exist. Up to the hubs now, and the first thing everybody wants to hear is the clutch. So slow. And fast. Bearing feel. Slow. Smooth as. Faster. Pretty much every hub now is really smooth. These are sealed bearings. These are ceramic bearings in these ones. Let's try the front wheel. That's fine. And what I did notice is there's a bit of grab. There's quite a bit of grab actually. See the wheel slowing down? There you go. I can feel it. You can't just move the axle with one finger. You've actually got to turn it. So there's something grabbing in there. And I doubt it's the bearing, because usually you feel roughness and glitch as it goes around. I would say it's a seal or 2 or 3 in the back wheel, or maybe 4, because there's 4 bearings in the back, of course. Just grabbing the front wheel. It's the same. That side is not too bad. This side is definitely grabbing. Of course, you can pull the ends off. Oh yeah, it's still grabbing. So it's nothing to do with with this here and the seal on the end cap, but it's to do with probably the bearing seal. So rather than pull everything apart, especially the clutch body, to try and see if I can find out what's causing a slight stiffness of the axle and the bearings there, I think I'll ride them. Just ride them for about 1,000 kilometres and that should definitely free them up. If not, then there's still a problem, and if it was the bearings too tight, then the bearings would probably start to bite into the race of either the inner or the outer races, and would start getting rough anyway, and you'd feel it. So my guess is they'll get smoother. So let's have a look inside the hub, and like a lot of hubs now, you can just pull them apart, no special tools. So the end caps come off, and this one you can either choose to pull the end cap off or the whole lot. And we're going to pull the whole clutch off, so let's have a look. This clutch has 4 pawls and just the right amount of just the right sort of grease. So now we've just got the axle going through the 2 bearings there either side. So the clutch is completely off, and there's 2 more bearings in there. Now let's have a feel now. Feels almost the same. It's still grabbing. One bit of the rim is heavier than the other. Yeah, it's a fraction better, but you can feel it. You grab the axle and it doesn't want to go smoothly. It wants to grab. So it's either the bearing is pressed in and it's really tight into the hub there. So the outside race is pressing in on the bearing. It's a little bit too tight, or it's the seals. Now these hubs are supposed to have ceramic bearings, so let's take off the seals and check them out. So we have black ball bearings, so that's silicon nitride, whilst the inner and the outer races are steel, and they're made in Taiwan. Checking out the spring tension, nice and strong, smooth and even on all four poles. Here's the front bearing, and it looks like steel ball bearings, but if we zoom in closer, it's steel retainers that we're looking at. The balls are underneath or inside those retainers, and it's difficult to tell whether they're ceramic or they're steel. Putting the dust cap back on, one thing's for sure, these front bearings are also made in Taiwan. Clutch engagement, that's the number of clicks per revolution of the wheel. Now, does it really matter for a road bike? Maybe for a mountain bike, BMX, and definitely a trails bike, but for a road bike, what do you think? So anyway, this one is 36. Now, the Freehub body is aluminium. You can just get a magnet, and it sort of sticks, but not that much. So it's probably attracted to the outer race of the bearings, if anything, because that'd be steel. You get a fully steel body. This is a cheaper wheel. This is a steel body, and the magnet really sticks. So obviously this is the aluminium body on these aero. Rotor attachment is for the Shimano spline system, so you slide your rotor on and you use a lock ring. For the weight, front wheel 740 grams. If you can see that through the spokes there. It's the only way I can hook it on there. Weight 880 grams. And as we always do, de-stress the wheels. No noises, no movement. Front wheel. No movement, no noises, no creaks, no nothing, that's fine. They're both fine. Tyre fitting, we're going to put on Vittorio Rubino Pro Graphene 2s. Here's the rim tapes. No problems. So what do we think of these Aerox wheels? Let's put the serious glasses on and read the stats. The packaging, no problem whatsoever, no issue, very good. The spokes, the twist, excellent, virtually no twist happening at all. The tension, very good, even at low tolerances, as you saw, we did down to 15% for the rear, 10% for the front. The dishing, perfect, I would say. The spoke length, yes, it's either yes or no with spoke length. It has to either go all the way to the top of the nipple, right to the head of the nipple. If it's below, anywhere below, it's not acceptable. These ones, fine, no issue whatsoever. Inside the rim, the carbon work, we looked with the endoscope. It's pretty typical of all the Chinese wheels we've been looking at, and we've had no issues. Well, I've had no issues with these wheels in performance, in riding them so far, so these should ride the same. Looks a bit messy, but they still ride fine and they hold up, no problems, no issues. What else have we got? The true. Horizontal and vertical true. Perfect, excellent. The aerodynamics. Now, I don't know, I really don't know about the aerodynamics, how aerodynamic they are, but however, you could be really picky, and this doesn't apply to just these Aerox wheels, any carbon wheels. You're going to have deep section rims, you're looking for aerodynamics. What you could do to make it that smidgen better is hide the nipples within the rim. Now there are wheels out there, I think Mavic bought some out, and Envy, where the nipples are within the rim. The spoke goes all the way into the rim and you can't see the nipple, it's not exposed. To true the wheel, you get an access via a socket, a special long socket to true the wheels if you need to. So hidden nipples would be the absolute ultimate for aerodynamic wheels. These are the slightly cheaper way out of it, having an exposed nipple, easy to make. The distress, no movement whatsoever. So these wheels get pretty much a perfect score, except one thing, the bearings. I know they're ceramic bearings, however, and they turn smoothly once you get them going, but to start them off, get a little bit of stickiness. It's called stiction. Once they start moving, you're fine. But to get them moving, there's that grab. So I'll probably wear in after 1,000 kilometres or so. However, to start with, that's not quite acceptable. Not quite. So they miss the mark. They don't get 10 out of 10. They'll get, let's say, 9.8 out of 10. Now, here's some of the wheels that I've reviewed of recently, and I keep getting asked the same sort of question many times. Which wheel set do you think is better? Blah, blah, blah. Well, it really depends on you. If you're a lighter sort of rider, and by lighter I would say 70 kilos or under, then you'll definitely get away with a lighter set of wheels. So that means a lower profile rim and lighter spokes and usually a lighter hub and even lighter tyres. However, if you're over 75, 80 plus kilograms, then you might want to go for midsection rims like I have myself. And if you're 90 kilograms plus, then you might want to definitely beef up your wheels. So heavier spokes, don't go for really light spokes because you'll end up with trouble. Brass nipples or beefed up nipples, otherwise you can end up breaking the nipples. The hubs are generally okay. So it's mainly the rims and the hubs. And your tyres, definitely don't go light tyres if you're a heavier rider. Err on the beefier tyres as well. So that means more weight, but don't worry about that because you're going to have less hassles. You're not going to be breaking your wheels and you're going to have less flex. So which of these wheels are better? Well, to me, they're all pretty much the same sort of profile. For me, I've got a few things to say. These Aviiav wheels are very average, as I might say it. They're okay weight, they're an okay price, they're built very well and they perform fairly okay. The ICAN wheels I found very, very light, very nice, and they perform quite nicely, nothing super duper. So they're quite light for the price, very well priced. But the most unusual set of wheels I had were these wind space. Now these wind space are different in that they have carbon spokes and the spoking arrangement's a little bit different. Very nice wheels. I found them to be very, very positive on the road, very light, and they want to get up and go. Zippy, very zippy, more so than all the other wheels. Maybe that's to do with the very tight tensioned carbon spokes. Has a slightly deeper rim. These are 65s. But I found them in performance wise, I would say they're just a smidgen above these sort of average carbon wheel sets. So I'll put these up here in the performance mode, but they are a little bit more expensive than the other models as well. So, well, you can't get everything for nothing, can you? But if you want a racing wheel set, I would err on these hypers. If you're not racing, then, well, it's up to you. I would go for a more average wheel set. Unless you've got lots of money, then you can go for whatever you want, of course. All these bikes, all these wheels. Lightweight wheels. I've got Steve. It's going to be really boring. It is a bit of a drag, but it's not as boring as what I think it's going to be.